I can recall the exact day someone actually in a startup told me we had a team building event, and I loved those guys, and we were friends. But we had this team building event. We went away, like a staycation, kind of, in a different town, and we had all sorts of exercises. And one of them was everyone gets a name from the team, and they have to go and tell them two good things and one not so good thing about them. And the one
Okay.
not so good thing was the exact same thing you just mentioned, that I'm setting a bad example with my work ethic. I work too much. I'm always available. I'm first to come, last to leave. And that's not a good example. And I make everyone else look bad because they leave at 5 or 5:30.
Welcome to Impact Us All, the business podcast for making substantial change. I'm your host, Jimmy Newson, the Impact Influencer. Join me as I explore the stories, strategies, and insights of entrepreneurs, industry experts, and national and global brands that care. We focus on the initiatives that make a significant difference in communities around the world and bring you innovative techniques for overcoming challenges and barriers in your business journey. This is a place for real-world lessons, actionable advice, and inspiring insights to help you elevate your unique selling proposition for professional and personal growth. Stay tuned as we dive into this week's impactful strategies. Let's move forward together, because together we can impact us all. In this episode, please allow me to introduce you to our amazing guest, Susanna Blau. Susanna is the global head of digital demand and campaigns at Nokia. Without further ado, please welcome Susanna Blau. Okay, here we go. Another amazing episode of the Impact Us All podcast, impact strategies for small businesses from the minds of big businesses who care. And I should also say entrepreneurs and really powerful professionals that really want to share and help us as small businesses think bigger and make a stronger impact. So today, of course, we've got Susanna here. And Susanna, first of all, thank you for agreeing to be on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, of course, we always know that this is always about impact, what type of impact we're making, whether that's locally, regionally, nationally, or globally. But before we get into impact, I always ask our amazing guests to first talk about themselves. Tell us a little bit about you, because you definitely got, there's a lot that we're going to be able to unpack here today. And you've done a lot and you're doing a lot. And I'm pretty sure you've got a lot planned. So there's those three stages. So let's start with that first section, what you've done and lead up to where you are right now.
All right. And again, it's an honor being here. It's always an honor when people want to hear from you and your opinions. It's actually incredible to say this, but my career in marketing now spans pretty much 2 decades. Most of it I spent in B2B, mainly in telecoms, SaaS, and services, both in startup and large enterprise settings. So that's actually something that gives me a little bit of advantage over others who only come from one or the other. And I'm currently working at the intersection of growth, brand, and product, as I like to call it, with a strong focus on digital channels, content marketing, and marketing innovation. I currently head up the global demand generation function for Nokia's growth engine, which is our cloud and network services software business. And I actually say I'm an accidental marketer. I was always drawn to technology. For a long while, I actually wanted to be a musical actress. And then in the late 90s, which again will date me, as web technologies really started to evolve and the first social media networks appeared, I was pulled right in. So I started out with coding. I actually have a degree in business information technology. And with that, I slowly but surely got into digital marketing. And I guess for that specific reason as well, I am a relentless learner. I'm super passionate about technology, anything and everything marketing, and equality as well, I'd like to say. And my colleagues would probably concur on the fact that I'm also someone known to challenge the status quo, which doesn't always get you a lot of friends. But I believe it's essential if we want to grow. So I like to do things a little bit different. I like to challenge things. I like to ask a lot of questions. And my favorite buzzwords for 2024 for
Okay.
marketers, especially, are all bound, hero pipeline, and ecosystems. And
Okay.
we're not talking about the death of the cookies and Gen AI.
Yeah.
I think people have heard enough of those two topics. So those are very interesting buzzwords. Maybe I'll add zero click marketing as well, since that is a new term I think not many have heard about or started discussions about.
Sure. Sure. And I like that zero click definitely is a huge thing. I'm not sure if we'll get into that today, but because that's our marketing head. That's how we actually met. Was at the Digital Marketing World Forum in Amsterdam, and I was just like, "Yo, this young lady is dynamic," and which is why I was like, "I got to ask you to be here." And it's funny because it's almost sounds like you and I almost have had very very similar lives in a way. My background's in the music industry, so I played instruments and sang on stage, and I accidentally went into marketing because I said, all right, we need something a little bit more stable because I feel like a glorified babysitter to everybody in my band. And I need people with budgets.
Yeah, but this actually explains why you're such a great MC and showman.
Yeah, yeah, that entertainment background really pays off when it comes to being on stage.
Yeah,
And the dance move, they help too. So
right.
this is so there's definitely a lot that we want to look at, and one thing I do want to tap into a little bit later is this whole status quo thing that you talked about in regards to sometimes that can make you some enemies, because that actually happened to me as well, and I think that we should really talk about that, if you will, if you want to
Sure.
unpack that a little bit, and I'll share my insight as well. But let's go ahead and start to get into impact. Okay, so which is why we're here. And the first thing I always like to ask is, what does impact mean to you, and or what does impact mean to the organizations you work with?
Impact in my world of marketing and business is definitely not something that's measured in numbers, or not always, or not necessarily measured in numbers. It would be resonance of our actions in the world, the transformations that we catalyze, for example, or the communities that we build, or the stories that we help unfold. So to me, impact is all about creating meaningful connections that transcend transactions. Wow, that even rhymed. But it really is leaving a lasting impression in someone. If you're a marketer creating brand recall, that's impactful to me. Since I'm in marketing, marketing legend Seth Godin, I'm sure he would say something about you being the purple cow in a field of beige.
Mm-hmm.
So for an organization, it's also about aligning your values with the aspirations of those that you serve, but in a unique way so that you stand out. And it's also about focusing on delivering value to your whole ecosystem. So not even just the customers you're trying to serve, but your employees, your partners, your vendors, your users, and so on and so forth.
Okay. And so you talked about it's not necessarily measured in numbers, and I like that because we have to get past that when we look at it from a marketing standpoint. If we look at just numbers, and I don't mean to get geeky for those who may not know that, let's use that as a KPI. Those are your lagging indicators. We need leading indicators. Things that really help us, that get us excited about doing something that leads to good numbers.
Yeah. And since you mentioned it earlier, and I definitely took it as a compliment, you said we met in Amsterdam at the Digital Marketing World Forum event, and that you remembered me as someone dynamic. So that is some kind of an impact I left on you, right? So
Mm-hmm.
there is this saying that your brand is not what you're trying to make it look, but it's what people actually say about you when you're not in the room. So that is also impact, is how you make people feel. Again, it's the connections, it's the emotions that you're evoking with anything and everything you do.
Sure. And what are the motivations that have you taken you down the path that you are on, or that keep you going?
I think, okay, easy. No, no, no.
Okay.
One super easy answer here is building and leading high performing teams.
Okay.
I am super passionate about my people, and it doesn't matter where my people are, if it's at work or if it's outside of work in my personal life. But just the feeling of impact of actually creating something from scratch, or creating a team that collaborates effectively, that actually loves being together and feeds off of each other's energy, or a team that embraces innovation that I really care about. At the same time, driving growth in really challenging situations. That's extremely rewarding and fulfilling to me, both on a personal and a professional level.
Mm-hmm.
And I am actually really extremely lucky to say that I have such a team right now as well. So that is super motivating and super rewarding to me in what I do. And the other thing is just like finding ways to kind of influence others. So just seeing the impact of your work. And that could be just a smaller campaign and how people react to it. You know, how marketers think the minute they launch a campaign, people start, putting things in their cart and go and actually start purchasing things 5 minutes later, which may be true in some settings in e-commerce and the consumer world, but definitely not in B2B. But still, what motivates us is seeing some kind of immediate result or gratification. And that is actually quite challenging in B2B, or can be challenging in B2B. So whenever we can get that satisfaction, that's very, very motivating.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100% because, of course, I'm in B2B too, so it's never going to be that easy.
Mm.
So what helps motivate us? So let's talk a little bit about um, maybe Nokia or any other company. So you've had a great opportunity to work with startups and Nokia,
Hmm.
which means that there's a huge spectrum in regards to how things operate, how things work, how they might look at impact. And
Hmm.
of course, Nokia is, I'm assuming and pretty sure that they're thinking about impact. The smaller
Oh.
organizations may not be because their head is so under the water. You know, Tell me a little bit about how you've seen impact from these type of organizations if they've existed in the smaller ones, and then of course maybe if you can to some degree around Nokia.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy to start with Nokia actually, but where do I even start? I mean, Nokia is such an iconic brand, and it's always had a really, really strong purpose and impact on people's lives. Like, even today, people react so strongly. They have such strong emotions for the brand
Hmm.
and for their first phones, and they love Nokia, So even from that aspect, Nokia has always had a strong impact on people's lives. But and I'm sure, most people would remember the old Nokia tagline, connecting people. That in itself is a very strong purpose that, you know, means impact as well. But I'm not sure everybody actually knows that Nokia today does not manufacture mobile phones anymore. We are the leading provider in telecommunications infrastructure and networking equipment. So, from enabling 5G networks, for example, that empower faster and more reliable communication, to providing broadband access and cloud services, or solutions for remote healthcare and education. Nokia strives to bridge the digital divide in the world, and with that, make meaningful difference in communities around the world. So you
Hmm.
can imagine there are many, many areas in the world where remote healthcare is crucial. Otherwise, you just simply don't have access to any healthcare. And the same with education. So our purpose statement actually today is, we create technology that helps the world act together. So for us, this actually means building critical networks that bring not only the people of the world together, but also bring or connect machines and devices as well. So our impact definitely extends beyond the products and the services we provide, but it's about the impact, I guess, we have on the world is creating connectivity that can transform the lives of people that otherwise wouldn't have access to a lot of things that we on the western part of the world take for granted.
Yeah, and I was going to actually say that in there when I live, of course, in America, and we have no clue sometimes unless you travel
Oh
outside
yeah.
the country, what how difficult it really can be for some of the things that we forget that is actually a what do I want to say a privilege to have.
Oh, absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
So all right, so go ahead. That was great. I loved it because I was going to also say, you know, Nokia has changed, and a lot of people, and I didn't know this until I met you,
Mm.
because I only knew Nokia from phones, and when I found out everything else, I was like, oh, oh, So go ahead. Let me let you continue.
Yeah. I mean, just on that, we live in the era of change and evolution and reinvention, right? From a personal brand perspective, if you just think about artists, they have to constantly reinvent themselves. But that's also true for brands. To be relevant, you have to keep reinventing yourself. And I'm sure. I mean, last year we saw an amazing example of a legacy brand that reinvented itself, which is Barbie, right?
Oh my goodness, yes.
But and again, that is one brand that still has such an impact on people's lives. An impact can be so many things, right? We discussed it at the beginning. So
Hmm.
it doesn't have to be life changing, but sometimes it is. But to bring it home a little bit as well with Nokia, Nokia keeps evolving as a brand as well. We are almost 160 years old,
Wow.
and I don't know if you know, but we actually started out, well, I'm talking about this as if I was there, but the company started out back in the 1800s as a pulp mill, and then went on to manufacturing rubber products, even condoms, by the way. So there are Nokia branded condoms in some museums somewhere. And then went on to manufacturing electronics, and then mobile phones, and then now, as I mentioned, networking equipment. So we live in a experience economy and a knowledge economy. And so, one, people kind of expect of you to deliver and give them that. help them learn or be informed about certain things, or give them amazing experiences, both in B2C or consumer and in B2B now. So the B2B buyers bring their consumer experiences into the B2B buyer journey.
Hmm.
So just going back to how companies can make impact, the top agenda of any great CEO and of course CMO today has to be how they can improve their overall customer experience that their brand delivers. And talking about marketing, I think marketing has a front seat position to guide that agenda because we are there to represent the voice of the customer, and we can apply a lot of the customer data that we gather and that we have access to shape the product and services that we sell, and shape the overall customer experience. And that experience ought to create impact on their lives. That's the whole point. Otherwise, what's the point of the business? The business is there to create value, and with that, add impact to someone's career or someone's life
Absolutely.
or business.
Oh my goodness. There's so much that you said. I wish we had hours to unpack
Next
each
time.
of them. Next time, yes. And so let's go on the smaller side of things where you worked with the startups. How has that either been the same or different, or in regards to impact?
Yeah. So look, certain aspects are the same in my opinion because every company, as I said right from the get go, if you don't have an initial idea of how you're going to bring value, create value for your ideal customer profile or your audience or your consumer, what are you doing creating a business, right? So you must have had an idea about why this business will be relevant to your audience and what it's going to bring them as value or impact. I
Hmm.
think the big difference may be in resources. So, for example, large enterprises, work with big government organizations as well and programs because they have the funds to actually create larger CSR activities and programs, which smaller companies and startups will not have the funds to do. They may do some volunteering, or they may decide to actually stand behind a social cause, which a lot of them actually do, and then dedicate a part of their revenue to a certain cause
Hmm.
again, but in probably smaller scales first. And then as they grow and as they scale, they can do big community focused CSR activities and spend more on those. Making sure that, and some of these seem forced or cliche at times, but making sure they have DEI, inclusion, equality programs in place, for example, which is also creating impact in the communities that and the lives of people that have maybe not had the same opportunities as others in the past.
Okay. Yeah. So let's and all right. So let's switch gears a little bit and let's go into people. So you mentioned a
Hmm.
lot about your people. That's where you are making a great impact. So let's start with the hard part of status quo. You know, and I'll give you my perspective of this, and then and then I'm gonna let you run with it because when I started off in entertainment, I started off doing private events, weddings, bar and bat mitzvahs, sweet 16s, you named it. And so I came in as an outsider, and in a lot there's clicks in every scenario, and so especially in that world there it's very clicky, and so I didn't necessarily fit the mold of a typical dancer and motivator, and so but my worth ethic was like boom, and so I would come in and just do what I needed to do, and I literally would get pushback that I'm working too hard, I'm doing too much, and it's making everybody else look bad. And that
Oh
was what I
gosh.
experienced when it came to status quo. And most people unfortunately back down. And then they fall into that group because there's always an alpha there. And so I was like, no, and it was just because I didn't know any better. I guess I just was always a rogue individual myself, but it carved out such a great path for me that even today now they have to call me up for advice. So that was my thing about status quo. So now I'm gonna let you go.
Yeah. You know, that's so funny you mentioned that because I can recall the exact day someone actually in a startup told me we had a team building event, and I loved those guys,
Mm-hmm.
and we were friends. But we had this team building event. We went away, like a staycation, kind of, in a different town, and we had all sorts of exercises. And one of them was everyone gets a name from the team, and they have to go and tell them two good things and one not so good thing about them. And the one
Okay.
not so good thing was the exact same thing you just mentioned, that I'm setting a bad example with my work ethic. I work too much. I'm always available. I'm first to come, last to leave. And that's not a good example. And I make everyone else look bad because they leave at 5 or 5:30. And I honestly, it was such an eye opener for me. I've never heard that ever in my life. And I didn't even realize that would be a thing. So I mean, I still put in a lot of work, and that's just in my nature, I guess. Uh, in the world of marketing, there's just your to-do list is infinite. There's no okay, check, I'm done, and I can go. So I could work around the clock and never sleep, and I would still be chasing my tail. So, and I love my job. I enjoy doing marketing. I'm really passionate about it, so I actually enjoy it as well. But I always make it a point to express this to my team and my peers that I work with, my stakeholders, that it's not an expectation of me. And if I send them a message, especially working across multiple time zones in a global role, it may be that I'm getting a message from someone in North America where it's still afternoon and they are still working, but it's nighttime already here or in India or elsewhere. So I always make sure that they understand that just because I send them a message outside of their business hours, I don't expect them to respond right away. And especially now in this remote work world, which I think many of us really, really appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
I also understand that people are stretching their hours differently. They'll do some hours in the morning, then they may go do something, cook, maybe take 2 hours or go, I don't know, do the laundry or pick up the kids from school, and then work a couple more hours again, put the kids in bed, and then work another couple of hours after they went to sleep. So it's also something that, whether or not your company culture allows, of course, but it's
Mm-hmm.
also something that we just need to make sure that everybody is aware of expectations, and that it doesn't come across as if you're not available 24/7, you're not enough.
Mm-hmm. So how does that play out with your team? So it sounds like there's a lot of
Hmm.
great flexibility there because
Hmm.
I can recognize that I've been working from home now for quite a few years, and I mean I was working from home before the pandemic made it a thing,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, same
So I
here.
was used to this life, but a lot of people had to get used to it. And it can be tough for your woo woos out there, those that
Hmm.
you're extroverts. I'm an introvert, so I was like, ooh, I
Yeah.
can live this life all day. How do you work with your team in a situation like that? What's the work structure like?
Yeah, so maybe we are a little bit unique in a sense as well, that we are in global roles,
Hmm.
and our stakeholders are sitting all across the world. So when we go into the office, you literally hardly ever work with someone in the same office. So that's part of the reason why, like the way my team is set up, everyone has their own topic, so to say. And so campaign managers, for example, they will have their campaign topics for which they will have a subject matter expert sitting somewhere in other parts of the world. They may have a field marketer, obviously, in every region, and other, I don't know, marketing automation person sitting in North America, and so on and so forth. So even though we are one team, we don't necessarily work together on a daily basis. We share best practices and we have inspiring conversations, but most of the day, everyone is on the phone interacting with their stakeholders scattered across the globe. So that's why I don't expect them to come in every day. It makes no sense. Why would you just spend an hour or two of your day commuting to come in and then sit in a quiet room and be on calls all day and then go home, and you never, you didn't see anyone, you didn't interact with anyone. What I ask of them is to come in every Thursday. They can come in every day if they want. And some people have that preference because of maybe they have a small child at home, or maybe they're living situation is not as comfortable in that sense, gives them the space, or they don't want to mix, their private life with their work life, and that gives them a better opportunity to shut down the laptop and actually go home. But we do come together every Thursday. We make sure that we have lunch together. We go to trivia nights together. It's really fun, actually. So we make time to connect, but not every day. And as long as people deliver and do their jobs, I I I don't care when they actually do the work in that
And
sense.
was
And
this
from where?
pre-pandemic behavior, or did this kind of take more effect after
Yeah.
during and after?
So we were used to working remotely even before the pandemic, but we had a rule that you had to be in the office at least 50% of the time. But right now, you can even choose to be fully remote if that is something your manager approves, right? Or supports. For us, because a lot of us are actually in the same office, it's my ask that they come in once a week on
Okay,
Thursdays.
nice. All right, so let's talk about your proudest moments. What is something that you're proud of as far as an impact strategy that you've implemented sometime recently, with yourself, with the team, with Nokia? So any scenario where you can really dive into, this was some great impact that we just did.
Uh, Okay, proudest moments. So, as I mentioned earlier, as a demand generation functioning a matrix B2B organization dealing in really large transactions, multi-million euro deals, really long sales cycles, probably the biggest challenge again is measuring impact. So there's no near immediate gratification like in the consumer or e-commerce world where you launch your campaign and 5 minutes later someone will actually sign up or purchase something, and that can be really discouraging. The sales the sales cycles are really long, so the marketing programs are really long, and it's almost impossible to connect this year's investments to this year's results. And that's usually what is required and expected of you. But marketing invests a lot in the future, but it's hard to justify to your CFO. So proudest moments is when we actually can connect the dots and and show impact on what we are doing, even on multi-year deals, even when it's around accounts that our AEs have been married to for decades, right? So in B2B tech, especially in these large enterprise settings, they are usually sales driven motions, like 99%. So marketing has a hard time proving their influence on the pipeline. And so I spend a lot of time obsessing about how we can actually do that. It's a different story when you're working for a small SMB or a startup scale up in B2B SaaS, for example, where you have a single product or a not so complex product structure, and you have five salespeople sitting next to the three marketers in the same room, and you can align right there. But when you have thousands of account representatives, sales reps across your organization, and you have literally hundreds or thousands of products and services you're selling, it's really super hard to connect the dots back to marketing. And again, with a brand like Nokia that everybody knows, it's also really hard to show that we are still increasing brand value with everything we do. So investing in our brand is very important, but how do you show that? Well, one thing I'm really proud of from here, for example, is I was when I joined Nokia actually, I was the one leading campaign efforts into a brand new segment, which was hyperscalers and web scalers. So these are the Googles, the Amazons, the Netflixes. So it's companies that are that base their business on the internet and connectivity. It's data center companies, it's esports and e-gaming and social media or social networks and so on and so forth. And honestly, one, they are a very, very different crowd than the usual Nokia buyer, the
Okay.
55 plus white man, right? CIO, for example. Here, you would have a 28-year-old founder slash CTO that you would have to sell to. One, they were actually the disruptors of their industries. Pretty much all of these companies disrupted their industries. Again, thinking of the likes of Amazon and Facebook and Netflix and Uber and I don't know, Spotify and so on and so forth. They created the on-demand bingeable world. So how the hell are you going to market to these guys? They consume content very differently. They don't pick up the phone. They don't answer sales calls or sales emails. They won't fill out forms to download your freaking 40-page white paper. It just doesn't happen. So that was a really proud moment for us to kind of, you know, orchestrate a go-to-market motion and a campaign that spoke to them. And I I have been looking at content marketing very differently ever since, to be honest. I often say that before you go and create 100 pieces of content or assets meant to influence the behavior of your target audience, make sure that you spend at least 100 hours on studying them and doing audience research. And I think a lot of companies or a lot of marketers forget to do this. They think they know them, but as we talked about earlier, the market keeps evolving, technology keeps evolving, content consumption habits keep evolving. Again, zero click marketing came into the picture. The way people consume content have changed very much because of these players that I mentioned, the creators of the on-demand world and bingeable content. These platforms that marketers have relied on for so much for so long have changed their game. The rules of content marketing as we know it have changed. We were used to okay, I do some keyword research, I'll create a blog post around it, then I'll put some budget behind it. I push it out there, I'll gather, I'll drive some traffic back to my site, and then people will buy. But these platforms, again, Google, the social media sites, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, they've gone from driving traffic to your site to keeping it for themselves, right?
Yeah.
So, meaning if you want to create content that does not live on their properties, they will penalize you. You have to create content that stays that your audience can actually consume on LinkedIn, not linking back to your site. Or Google is doing everything in their power to keep people on the search page and not send them to the actual results. So when you're searching for something, they want to give you the answer right there and then without you having to click anywhere. Or the rise of ChatGPT, the same reason. You don't have to click anywhere. You just ask something and the answer is right there. Of course, there are lots of questions and implications of that as well. But that's the direction we are going. So this new game plan, zero click marketing, focuses on engagement and bingeable experiences, not click through traffic.
Mm-hmm. And so I'm glad you went there because I wasn't sure if I was going to go there, how to go there, but because of your uniqueness in having you on this podcast, and I think that people listening to the podcast could benefit from this. That's exactly it. We're taught, at least now lately, not to put links in the initial post and maybe put it under, because of course I always say that we want to get them off social media channels and into our funnels, because and they want the opposite. So let's quickly talk about, I think the audience can benefit from, because I think marketing plays a huge role in impact for an organization, and you can chime in on that.
Yeah.
But what is zero point market? What is zero touch marketing? I hope I said that right. I think I just
zero click. Zero click.
Yes.
Yeah. What is zero click? So zero click marketing, again, focuses and really goes all in around engagement and not click through traffic. So you have to create and post content that lives directly on the platforms like LinkedIn, like Facebook or Instagram, without having them click through elsewhere, or TikTok, any other platform, really. Even email, actually. Zero click marketing pertains to email as well. I know from my own experience, I don't like to click into email. If you send me an email, I want to read what you want to tell me right there in the email. Don't make me go and click three more things. Let me consume the content right there and then. And that is not because the game of the platforms have changed, but it's because consumers changed their content consumption habits, right? So again, engagement. Forget about linking back to your site all the time. Of course, there's a place for everything, right? But I think in content creation, you really have three goals. Okay, let me take a step back. Going back to the basics. This may sound really obvious, but people buy from brands that they know, love, and trust. Three things. Okay, but how do you get them to actually know, love, and trust you? So one really good way of that is creating memorable content experiences. Again, we live in an experience and knowledge economy, and so every brand should be creating really at least three types of content with three different purposes. One, storytelling content, thought leadership content that will inspire, that will build trust in your audience, that will educate your audience. That doesn't talk about you. That talks about the issues at hand, your audience's pain points and challenges. And then the second one is factual product specific content that will inform your audience. So this is when you can actually start talking about you, but still in a way that shows them that you understand their pain points, but that you also have solutions in that area. And then the third one is, I think, where especially B2B brands usually don't know how to do or do it well, is creating entertaining, edutaining content that will leave a lasting impression and create that brand recall that you want down the line. Because we know that about 70-80% of the buyer journey today is done in the dark, on their own, meaning your buyers are doing their own research, self-educating, staying anonymous as long as possible. And there's no way for you to measure that. So that's where zero click marketing also kind of comes in. We need to move away from being so obsessed with attribution focused strategies. Because a couple of years ago, when the marketing automation tools that we know and love today, like Marketo and Eloqua and Pardot and others, came around, it was a lot easier to actually connect marketing investments to pipeline. But because of the modern buyers, very complex buyer journey, that complexity really complicates attribution tracking. Let's take an example. You're looking at the source of your website traffic. I guarantee you that a lot of your traffic will show up as organic traffic. So if you're sitting there thinking about making decisions on how to spend your budget, you may be thinking, okay, yes, I will invest more in SEO because I see it's really, bringing me a lot of good results. But the truth is that a huge chunk of that buyer journey was done in the dark before someone actually decided to, okay, now is the time to put in Google search Nokia 5G monetization and land on your website. So all of the activities that you are running to build demand accumulate over time. I feel like it's almost like sowing seeds, right? And it takes time to see results, and you think nothing's happening. There may be no visible activities happening above the ground for a while, but it doesn't mean that nothing's happening. And on the contrary, actually, the most important buyer research and buyer conversations actually happen in the dark corners of the dark funnel, as we call it in marketing. Think about social lurking. Like, how many times do you actually read a post on LinkedIn, for example, but you don't like it, you don't comment, but you actually consumed it, or you listen to a podcast like this one? Jimmy, you're not going to be able to measure and know exactly who listened to this podcast, but obviously somehow you believe that it will create impact, and there is a reason why you're creating this content. Or peer conversations that you're having at events, or I don't know, TV and radio. That's the easiest examples, or you're reading an analyst report, and the brand will have absolutely no idea that there is someone out there actually reading about them, interacting with their content, but all of that without a click, without a form fill, without a download, without conversion, and without attribution. And I think marketers struggle with this because we've been pushed to measure and prove ROI on every single thing that we do all the time. And not only just prove ROI, but prove 10x and 20x ROI on everything. So it's like we are being pushed to always just only do the tactical things that bring immediate results. But it's also facts that if you stop investing in brand marketing and demand creation, and all you do is focus on short-term lead gen tactics, you're actually hurting yourself in the long run. One is going to cost you a lot more because without brand awareness and brand recall, it will take a lot more touches, and it will be a lot more expensive for you to actually acquire new contacts and new leads. But also, marketing is not a tap that you can just open and boom, all the leads just fall out, and then you close it, and then 3 months later you open it again and the same volume of leads fall out again. If you're not consistent, people will not remember you. And also, let's be real, 100K plus deals simply won't convert on a single ad or your biweekly email. You need all of these touches. And I think we marketers must, especially in B2B, we really must learn to value all of these touch points happening in the dark without attribution or measurement opportunities for what they truly are, which is a chance to burn your brand and key messages in the back of the minds of your audiences and build trust and love for your brand.
Susanna, we're going to have to do like a part two up in here because I can't even take notes fast enough.
I know. I
Because
told you I was passionate about this.
I'm sitting here like, all right, I got to talk about, all right, I'm running out of time. I got to talk about that though. I got to get, you're so on point, and because we do, and I
You got
think
me blushing now. I'm all red.
it comes down from the top where they're asking you for things that are against the value of the company. And I'm talking about the CEO and even the CMO pushing down on his team or her team in a way that I love that. I always say to them, I go, just because they're not clicking doesn't mean they're not paying attention. And you're
Oh,
so
that's right.
right. You're building that relationship to the point where you ask and answer that very important question: how do I get them to like, know, and trust me, to love
Yeah.
me, to be an evangelist for me? And it is showing up when they don't need you in a way that is extremely helpful to them.
And
And
I'll, oh,
go
okay, go
ahead.
ahead.
No,
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 I
go
was
ahead.
just going to say, I'll tell you why also, because people easily get complacent and they get used to what worked for them before and they keep doing what worked before and they forget to actually check what's happening in the market. And on the other hand, your consumers, your customers, they figured out all of your tricks. So they
Mm,
won't fill out a form anymore because they know that 30 minutes later, someone's gonna either call them or if not call, you should see my inbox. My God, the level of outbound cold calls and cold messages and prospecting I get. And I get it. But that's exactly why we don't interact with content the same way we did 5, 10 years ago, is because we learn from our mistakes and we don't want to be chased just because I wanted to educate myself on a subject and now someone wants to sell me something about it. Let your be the main source of information and knowledge for your audience, and they will come to you. Let them come to you. Give them all the information and all the access they need to be informed. Make sure you keep them on your pages so they don't have to go back to Google and land on a competitor's page. And that's why create those bingeable content experiences. Create entertaining content that will create brand recall and they'll remember you when the time comes. But don't expect everyone to actually want to buy from you just because they've read a piece of, I don't know, a blog piece on your website.
absolutely. So yeah, so I'm going to have to start wrapping this up because I know you've got a lot of great stuff. Well, actually, it's the end of the day for you. Where exactly are you in the world right now?
I'm in Budapest, Hungary, so it's 2 minutes to 6 p.m. Yes,
Okay, so it's not too bad.
not too late.
I'm
Yeah,
on the East Coast here, so we're almost noon here.
you're hungry.
When
I
should
get
a
it.
small business? Oh no, no, I'm like you. It'll be 5 p.m. I'd be like, did I eat today? And I'm still not even hungry. And I should probably do that just so I don't fall over. But let's look at let's take this now, and I want to kind of pivot it for a small business. So my first question to you is: when should a small business be thinking about this type of stuff that you just brought up?
Which one? Which
Oh
part?
yeah, you brought up a lot of stuff.
I brought up a lot of stuff, right?
Let's talk about. I think I know where this episode is going and has gone.
Uh-huh.
And when should they start thinking about
Impact.
relationship building? Let's just call it that,
Oh,
for connecting with people. Uh,
right from the start,
I'll let
baby.
you go. You got it. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's the whole reason why you're creating a business. It's you want to make impact, or you want to create value for somebody. You identified a niche, you identified a space where that impact or that value is not created yet. And our life in general is all about connections, it's all about relationships.
Mhm.
Actually, there is a Hungarian scientist, world renowned, and he actually lives in works in the States, Albert Laszlo Barabashi. He's a network scientist, and he studied the impact of or the perception of success. I don't want to butcher his whole study, the results of his study, but he did kind of, to summarize it, he did prove that success is actually not based on your performance. Most of the time, unless you're an athlete where you actually need to measure your performance to be successful. But for like the everyday business person or an artist, success is based on how others perceive you, not your performance. So you could be an awful artist and people may still buy your ugly pieces for $1 million because they perceive it as good or successful. And you could be sitting there wondering, I put in all this work, I worked the hardest. Why is that other person getting promoted over me? So it's not about performance. It's not about the work that you put in. It's really how people perceive you. And that goes back to your personal brand as well. And it unfortunately, it's about all the relationships that you have. And based on that, you're also perceived in a certain way. There's a reason why there's this old saying, birds of a feather, so success and impact is how you perceive it, not necessarily proven with facts.
Love it. Love it. All right. So then I have one more question for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that question is directed directly towards you. And so that question is, what do you think your superpower is, or what is your secret weapon of getting things done?
My secret weapon is I put in the work. I said I work a lot, but that's because I love what I do, and I think it's also that I'm quite organized. I know my colleagues sometimes like are shocked that in 2 seconds I find an email from like 10 years ago. Also, I'm a really, really curious person. I do a lot of research on all aspects of things that interest me, including marketing, right? I love to try and test things. I love to learn from others. I talk to people, but also Google and ChatGPT are my best friends.
Okay.
And I don't worry about having all the answers. There was a point in my career where I thought that if you become a leader, a manager, you have to know everything. But thankfully, by now, I understand that you don't have to know everything. You just have to have the right questions to ask to move things forward. And finally, I think my secret weapon is the amazing work friends and professional circle that I have. I think aligning yourself with colleagues and peers who will mention you in rooms of opportunity, who will hold you accountable for things that you want and encourage you to grow and celebrate your wins is the biggest blessing ever. And that's my secret weapon. I have an amazing circle of work friends and peers like that.
Okay, and I absolutely love that, and but I really love you don't have to know everything. That one was a hard one even for me, and when I finally embraced it a few years ago. I'm not gonna say how far back, but
Yeah.
a few years ago I finally embraced it, and it does make our lives a lot easier because we shouldn't have to know everything.
Yeah.
We just have to be a compassionate, empathetic type of individual for the
Right.
people around us.
Yeah.
So any final words or thoughts to pass on to the audience today?
Be bold, take chances, appreciate each other, create relationships, try strategic networking. It has amazing impact on your life, personal and professional. And be authentic. That's also a topic we probably, I shouldn't even mention because we would go down a rabbit hole, but authenticity is huge in 2024 and has been, but especially I think more and more brands need to show how authentic they are Consumers can smell BS from a mile away now, and so be authentic.
Yeah, and we can definitely tap into that. I definitely got some gripes there, but yeah, we'll save that for another conversation. Susanna, how can people connect with you?
Connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love to hear from you. Well, I guess I can send you a link that you can include on my profile, or you can find me. I'm the only one with that name on LinkedIn, so it's easy to find me.
that helps a lot, especially in
It
this
helps.
world. Well, how many people we have? 8 billion now. Who knows?
Oh gosh,
So
yes.
you're one in 8 billion people. I
I
don't
think so, at
you
least
might
on
be the only one that
LinkedIn.
can make that claim.
At least
So
on LinkedIn, I am. Yeah.
okay. Well, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here today. I knew the moment I met you, or after I decided to do this podcast, you had to be on this show, and I was not let down. I mean, again, I can't even the fun I just had is immense,
Um,
and we went into marketing, and I think that's important. And so I do want to get your one last thought on this is, what do you think is the biggest impact on a business from a department? Which department? And maybe so I'm having you pit
which
departments against
department
each
has the
other.
biggest impact on business?
Yes.
I
Would you
mean,
give me
come
that answer?
on. I mean, um, HR. No, HR has a big impact as well. But of course, it's marketing. As I said, we have that front row seat to everything our customers need and want, and have all the data about how people engage with us, and we are the keepers of the key messaging that we need to deliver to actually get people to buy. And I mean, I could go on, but yeah, it's how we get in front of people and creating that brand perception about your company, and how they remember you. It's all about marketing. Of course, it's across the line. It's across
Exactly.
the whole
Exactly.
organization. But if I had to say one, who else? It's marketing.
And I would, and again, I'm not. We got love for everybody out there, but make marketing your best friend, because we do touch everybody. We affect every aspect, and everyone can learn a lot from marketing, because we're not about trying to close a deal. We're about trying to build a relationship.
That is so beautiful and so true. Yes.
So, Susanna, thank you so much. I look forward to having you back. And everyone else, like this here, give us a great review on this show. And I look forward to seeing you in another episode of the Impact Us All Business Podcast. Again, Susanna,
My
have an
absolute
amazing day.
pleasure.
And we will see you all very soon.
Thank you. See you soon.
And that brings us to the end of another enlightening journey here on the Impact Us All Business Podcast. Every story we've shared, every insight gained, is a step towards creating a world where business becomes a beacon of positive change. Your time with us is more than just listening. It's about becoming part of a movement that values growth, innovation, and the incredible impact we can have when we come together. If you're ready to be a part of this journey every step of the way, we have 3 small favors to ask. 1, please subscribe to our podcast. It's the easiest way to ensure that you never miss an episode filled with stories and strategies that matter to you. 2, leave us a review, even if it's just 1 word. Your feedback helps us grow and continue bringing you content that inspires and empowers. And 3, rate our podcast. Your ratings help others find us, expanding our community of impactors who, just like you, want to make a difference in the world. Every step you take with us is a step towards impactful change. Your voice, your action, and your participation, it all adds up to a global movement. Let's continue to reshape the world, one business, one idea, one story at a time. Together, we can impact us all. See you in the next episode.